Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Commander video. This time we have another end of the year awards video. Talking about 2021, everything we got from the beginning of the year in Kaldheim up to the most recent set, Crimson Vow and the Crimson Vow Commander product. Before I get into the video, please do hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And if you want to help support the channel, you can become a channel member. For this one, we're going to be talking about the creature ETBs. It's very popular in Commander to build decks around creature ETBs. It's also just popular to have these creatures because they tend to be among the most effective. Creature ETBs range from good value in card draw, you get some tutor ETBs, and you have some removal ETBs. You can find anything from utility to just straight up power. And that's what is so great about creatures entering the battlefield, is that it will synergize with pretty much any deck. So expect to see a lot of creatures in here that are flexible, a lot of creatures that are going to have a lasting impact in this format. As I did before in my previous video for End of the Year Awards, I will be taking your opinion into consideration. I did run a poll here for creature ETBs, and we'll look at the results of that at the end of the video. So starting off here, not every single set has their own great creature, so I'm going to try to mix it up here, try to spread things out evenly. With Kaldheim, we got Burning Rune Demon, and I love this card. I think it's one of the most undervalued cards all year. Runescar Demon has been a very good card in Commander for a long time, so getting essentially that but for 6 mana, and the only downside of maybe discarding a card that you don't want to discard, you have probably a clear improvement here for a lot of decks. And I say that because for some people, having to discard a great card is sometimes just as good, if not even better, than having it in your hand. There are a lot of good Reanimator decks that can benefit off of this. A lot of decks where all you want is to just get to your creatures, you don't care where they are. Because there's a lot of great creature reanimation, but this could also fit into other decks because keep in mind we have Flashback, we have Disturb this year for Innistrad, so there's a lot of value to get from Burning Rune Demon. If I had to choose my personal favorite of this year, I think this is it. And then for Strixhaven, it was a little bit weaker. I didn't notice as much power, but we did have the cool commander option in Tanazir Quandrix. So if you were a fan of the +1/+1 counter strategy, this was a direction for you to go in. More focused on just straight up power in combat, but the ETB is solid if you have a creature with a ton of +1/+1 counters. If you get triggers off of putting +1/+1 counters on creatures, Tanazir Quandrix is fantastic. Gives you some extra teeth behind whatever you're trying to do. But again, for Strixhaven, there is one for Commander 2021 that I really want to talk about here in a moment. But outside of Spellslinger, I don't think this set offered much for Commander. And then looking at Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, this one might be flying under the radar, Guardian of Faith. So if you're a fan of Teferi's Protection, you kind of have that on an ETB, but for your creatures. Any number of your other target creatures you get to protect by phasing them out. And that's how you should treat this. It has great creature types there, very good synergy for those tribes, and being only 3 mana with Flash means that it's going to be a desirable choice for a lot of white decks in the future. Since Teferi's Protection was really one of the only cards that did that, outside of just instant speed giving things indestructible like other cards do, Guardian of Faith will just flat out protect your creatures, make them untouchable. So that's very strong, very useful, has a lot of potential, a very high ceiling. We don't already have something like this. This is only just starting to see play. And for the Commander product that went alongside the set, Druid of Purification is crazy. I love this. This is everything that you want in removal for green. For a long time, we've had things like Acidic Slime and Reclamation Sage, which they're great, but now we have one that's even better for a multiplayer game. So each player gets to choose an artifact or an enchantment that you don't control. That's including you, so if you have 4 players at the table, that's 4 choices. So that's 4 problems off the board and you're untouchable. Any way of abusing this, if you can blink it, if you can bring it back from the graveyard, get the ETB again, it's gonna put in a ton of work and it could potentially lock out your opponents. Only downside is that it is a May, so certain players may sit it out and they don't have to choose. Worst case scenario, it's just you choosing, which I still think is good for 4 mana. Now for the official Commander product, it's kind of weird that we're calling it the official one, but Commander 2021 gave us, I think, probably one of the best cards for ETBs in Angel of the Runes. I did talk about this in my removal video, and if it's not good enough to be the best removal card this year, then it should definitely be considered for best ETB. You get to hit 2 different artifacts and or enchantments. So I said this in the previous video, this is just like Return to Dust or Crush Contraband. You get that kind of power on an ETB. It's so reusable, so abusable. No matter what deck you're playing in white, see if it can fit this card. You won't be disappointed. And then for Crimson Vow, we got Cultivator Colossus, one of the big ones. I know you guys love it. Power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control, so bare minimum, you paid 7 mana for a massive creature with trample. I know you want more, you might be a little bit disappointed, but that's never really a bad thing. The upside, though, is why you play cards like these. It enters, you just keep playing lands, you keep drawing cards, you keep filling your hand up, you get a ton of those landfall triggers from your other cards. This plant beast is pretty incredible. It's no doubt going to be strong anywhere else you play it, but in Commander, because 7 mana isn't as much of a mountain to climb as it is in other formats, and we have ways of easily abusing ETBs and reanimating creatures, something like this is going to be even more powerful. And then we have the card from Crimson Vow's Commander. This isn't from a product, but this is actually from the Commander set. Like if you open the packs, you get these cards. I don't know. It's been confusing the past 2 sets that they've done this, but Umbra Sphere Manifest has a crazy ETB where you get to Exile Mill. And Exile Mill is just overpowered because your opponents don't get to shuffle things like the Eldrazi back into their library. You know, there's nothing there, there's no line of protection that can really stop that from happening. So you just play Horror and Nightmare Tribal and find ways of abusing that ETB like you would with any other card here. It gets extra points in my opinion for just being that unique where we've never had anything like that with Creature Tribal before. If there's any downside, it's that most people probably won't appreciate it. Alright, and before I get to the selection here, I'd like to talk about some honorable mentions. I think Thought Monitor is a very powerful card, has a lot of potential, and I don't think it's realized quite yet. It's a 7 mana affinity creature, which means that if you're playing the right kind of deck, it's not going to cost you much mana. It enters and you draw 2 cards, so it's an abusable Mulldrifter, and because it's an artifact, you have more ways of bringing it straight back to the battlefield. So if you are playing artifacts, if you're looking for even more ways of drawing cards, and you don't want to have to pay that much mana, this affinity creature is brilliant. Next we have a card from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Precon with Sephris, all about venturing into the dungeon. I think this is a crazy good ETB. Maybe doesn't have the most potential because we're kind of out of venturing into the dungeon. Seems like it's here for that one set and only that one set. But if there's any future potential that we ever go back and venture into the dungeon, this creature is going to be a must-have. Every time it enters, or any other non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you advance into the different rooms. You get a venture into the dungeon trigger. And these dungeons range from pretty good to even better. So you get a ton of value each time you get one of those triggers. So let's look at the poll. Let's see what you guys thought about these creature ETBs. And again, I only have the ability to choose 5 of these for these YouTube polls and get the most people voting. But I got almost 6,000 people voting again. And by a mile, Cultivator Colossus was your favorite. And while it might not be my personal favorite, I did like Burning Rune Demon. I do like Angel of the Runes, but it's just undeniable. The power here, I don't think we've ever had anything quite like this, where if you're allowed to, you could just keep going until you eventually don't have a land. I think in just the upside potential for this card, it's what's most appealing about it. It's almost like an ad nauseum play, where you just want to see what you get out of it. Even if it bombs and you don't get much, you just want to see how far you can go. So it's an exciting play on an ETB, and that I think is probably the biggest reason why people love it so much. So the best creature ETB of 2021 is Cultivator Colossus. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I will have more end of the year awards, different categories coming out here, and probably polls scheduled ahead of time just to kind of give you guys an understanding of what we're going to be doing next. So if you enjoyed the video, again, please do subscribe, like, comment, share, hit the notification bell. Commander Void here. I will see you all next time.